Minister of Energy and Mines.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. And I'm rising to speak today in support of Bill 8, which we're presently debating. Just a moment, there it is, under the stack of papers, the actual piece of legislation. Honourable Speaker, I'm very supportive of cleaning up how people are able to influence government. I think that British Columbians around the province want to be reassured that how decisions are being made, who is advocating for what, and who is influencing any potential decisions, is all done in a very transparent manner, and it's done in a way that doesn't use a privileged access to information and relationships that could be seen as unfair. Now, I was listening to the member opposite's comments about how it might be unfair to have a 2-year period before anybody who had held office or anybody who had worked in a minister's office to actually that 2-year period, that 2-year cooling off period, so to speak, would somehow be unfair. And especially considering that we've had a recent change of government. I wholly disagree with that, Honourable Speaker. The primary thing that needs to be driving this decision-making process is transparency and public accountability, not fairness to your friends, Honourable Speaker. And that's why I think that this bill has hit the right mark, is that we are seeking to ensure that the public confidence in how government decision-making takes place is there, Honourable Speaker. We're not here to protect our friends or our former staff or our former colleagues in the way that the Liberal member was suggesting. We're here to ensure the public interest is met. Honourable Speaker, to that effect, I hear lots of mumbles across the way, Honourable Speaker. I'm sure they're very disappointed in having a 2-year cooling off period, Honourable Speaker. In fact, you know, it doesn't really surprise me when we consider the past 16 years and what had been going on in other areas of this of that administration, Honourable Speaker. I mean, we'll all recall how BC was deemed the Wild West of political financing, Honourable Speaker, and how inappropriate and embarrassing that was. That was incredibly embarrassing for all British Columbians. I know you guys liked it, and that's why you're chattering around right now, but actually British Columbians found it embarrassing to be called the Wild West of political financing. Sorry that upsets you. Sorry that upsets you so much, member. All the same, Honourable Speaker, it's the exact same thing in this particular situation. It's about bringing integrity back to government so that the public can have confidence in how, they cannot stop, Honourable Speaker, can they? They cannot stop. They're so upset at this concept. They're so upset at the concept of public accountability, of integrity in government, aren't they, Honourable Speaker? Please. Honourable Speaker, 2-year cooling off period, that's essentially what this bill is about. Public accountability, Honourable Speaker, making sure that we have transparency and that we limit the influence of those with inside knowledge on government policy making. That's exactly why we want to be dealing with this issue and ensuring that lobbyists have not been involved with government in terms of the Executive Council, in terms of parliamentary secretaries, senior staff. And so who does that all include, Honourable Speaker? Let me just be sure about, let me communicate that for all members of this House. So this is exactly who this bill will be affecting. Obviously, former cabinet ministers, their political staff, parliamentary secretaries, as I mentioned, Honourable Speaker, deputy ministers, ministry CEOs, associate deputy ministers, and assistant deputy ministers, or any positions of an equivalent rank in the ministry, and the 2 most senior positions and board members of universities, institutions, school boards, health authority boards, hospitals, organizations in the natural resources and economic development sector, transportation and social services sectors, the Workers' Compensation Board, and a number of Crown corporations, Honourable Speaker, agencies, as well as associations. So that is all who is going to be impacted by this bill, to make sure that those people who had intimate knowledge of government programs, policy, and decision-making are not using that knowledge, Honourable Speaker, the day that they get out of those positions, and then use that to influence government, and obviously get paid to do so, Honourable Speaker, because that is the job of lobbyists, is they are getting formally paid to support organizations, to build relationships and influence government decision-making. And Honourable Speaker, I'm not by any stretch saying that people who work in government relations are not useful and not doing a good job and don't work with the highest integrity, Honourable Speaker. I've met many, many people over the years, obviously, Honourable Speaker, who have demonstrated an incredible integrity and a very strong dedication to the organizations for whom they are working, to ensure that government is informed about the issues that are of concern to British Columbians, to a particular industry, to a particular sector, to a particular social service sector, for example, Honourable Speaker. These people, it's not that they are doing a bad job or they're inherently problematic in the system. It's not that at all, Honourable Speaker. It's that we want to ensure that there is a level playing field, and we want to ensure that there's no undue influence. Wow, the chatter doesn't stop. I am so honored, Honourable Speaker, that the heckling never seems to stop any time I get up. So thank you so much to the members opposite for letting me know that they are awake and listening. Honourable Speaker, we have identified a 2-year cooling off period, as I mentioned, for these particular individuals when they leave government, before that they're actually allowed to step forward and then lobby government, use that knowledge that they garnered while under the employ of government, and step forward. But that's not to say that the Office of the Registrar of Lobbyists is not able to make exemptions, Honourable Speaker. We have definitely allowed for that in this legislation, recognizing that that particular individual, the Office of the Registrar, is the body that actually oversees the lobbyists in this province and has a fulsome understanding of who is doing what, and they hold that information on behalf of British Columbians. So that the registrar is able to make exemptions if they deem that it is in the best interest of the public. I think that's appropriate, Honourable Speaker. They'll be able to look at all of the details and determine whether somebody is in fact not using their previous employ in an undue manner, Honourable Speaker. And so that option is there. But however, if somebody should do that, we do acknowledge that there will be penalties, and there will be administrative penalties up to $25,000, and that's what we are putting forward. And therefore, Honourable Speaker, there are mechanisms of accountability. Now, we're not alone in this approach, Honourable Speaker. A lot of other jurisdictions are doing that at the federal level. The federal government's Lobbying Act, for example, prohibits designated public office holders to lobby government for a period of 5 years, Honourable Speaker. So at the federal level, they're looking at 5 years. Here we are looking at 2, which is in line with a lot of other provinces. Some other provinces, they have a 1-year prohibition. Saskatchewan has only 6 months, Honourable Speaker, for anybody who wasn't a cabinet minister. Cabinet ministers have a 1-year prohibition, Honourable Speaker. I believe that augmenting that to 2 years is a better approach, obviously, because I'm in support of this bill. And the reason I do, Honourable Speaker, is that by the time you have that 2 years, especially into a new government, or say you've had a government that was even around for, say 16 years, Honourable Speaker, I feel that 2 years gives enough opportunity for distance to occur between that individual and their knowledge of what went on within government and the government of the day. I think it does a better job than just 1 year, than essentially one budget cycle. So, 2 budget cycles, I think, does a better job of that, Honourable Speaker. And at the end of the day, we're here to do the best job we possibly can for British Columbians, and that's why I think that 2 years is better than 1. Some other points that I want to make, Honourable Speaker, is I mentioned the exemption, and that the Office of the Registrar of Lobbyists will be able to provide exemptions if they believe that's in the best interests of the public. So I'll give you an example of what could possibly trigger an exemption, Honourable Speaker, and that would be if the former public office holder were in office for a short period of time or had limited influence in their ministry. However, this will always be the discretion of the registrar, Honourable Speaker. It's not the discretion of the government of the day. It's the discretion of an independent office holder of the Legislative Assembly as a whole, who will be reviewing the details of that person's particular employ with government and then be able to determine whether it is fair to exempt that person or not. And I would say that for transparency and administrative fairness, the registrar will be required to make available to the public every single exemption, its terms and conditions, and the reasons for granting the exemption, Honourable Speaker, so that the public can see what's going on and they can know exactly why the registrar made that decision. Honourable Speaker, I also wanted to mention, I believe it should be noted that one of the things that this Act also does is require that lobbyists list to whom they are specifically speaking to. So my understanding presently right now is that lobbyists are required to just say we're speaking to a particular ministry or to a particular caucus. We want to narrow that down even further so that the public has complete knowledge of who specifically lobbyists are speaking to, so they know where the actual transfer of communication is, where the influence may be happening, where information may be transferred, and so on. The public has a right to know this, Honourable Speaker, so we're formalizing that with this Act. Honourable Speaker, I will wrap up by saying that I think that it's very important for us in this place to consistently be mindful of how we ensure that public has confidence in what we do here on their behalf. And there's no doubt about it that many people who are working in government relations do a formidable job in ensuring that the organizations for whom they work, whether they be a nonprofit, whether they be a corporation, that they're assisting those entities to provide government with information so that we are able to make better decisions, so that we are better informed. That is an important activity in government, Honourable Speaker. That being said, it needs to be done in a way that is transparent and gives the public confidence, Honourable Speaker. And I think that it's important, since the last time we saw any update to the Lobbyist Act, that the Lobbyist Registration Act, that the last time we saw any update was 2009. We've learned from practices since then, and I think it's important that we take those learnings and actually implement them into law so that the public can have confidence that government is making decisions in a transparent way on their behalf. At the end of the day, the integrity of this place is paramount, and it only exists if the public has confidence. I believe this bill will go to ensure public confidence in the way in which people advocate on behalf of organizations who employ them to do so, and it will ensure that those who are doing that advocacy are not using undue experience and knowledge of government programs and insider information that is not appropriate, Honourable Speaker. With that being said, I again reiterate my support for this bill. I thank the Minister responsible, the Attorney General, for putting this together, bringing it forward, and allowing us to have this debate and restore public confidence in the way in which BC's government operates.